Welcome, everybody. And thank you for coming today. And more importantly, for your support over all the years. The best thing about that Asset Leadership Network is the consistent, high quality, excellent people who are not only super smart, but are also passionate about helping their organization and other organizations make the world a better place. So it's actually possible to do well while you're doing good. And I just wanted to thank everyone for coming, check to make sure we're recording, and welcome our George Washington of the Asset Leadership Network, Jim Dieter. And I'm disappointed he's not wearing his Nationals uniform. The last time we were together, it was the first game of the World Series or something, and he had to represent colors. So Jim is going to open things up. There's schedules. I'm sure you might have seen them. And Jim?
I'm going to use the podium. How about that? Yeah. I want somebody to take a picture of me behind the podium saying the National Academy of Sciences. You know, it's awesome. Awesome to be here. So welcome, everybody. I want to start by thanking our patrons and organizational members. We'll be talking about them more throughout the day. But the ALN is a trade association, not a membership organization. And those are the groups that make it all possible. So we thank those that are here today and those that aren't as well. So on our ALN Thursday at 3, which I'm sure you'll have all watched at least from time to time, our typical first question is, so how did you get to where you are in asset management? How did you get to today from wherever you started? So I'll do the a couple minute version of the ALN for those of you who might not be familiar. But personally, myself, Rich Carlbutson, some other people got involved in standards through ASTM early in this century. That makes it sound like a long time ago, right, Rich? Yeah. And started developing standards. After a while, we heard about some Brits that had a standard called Pass 55. And then we heard that they were talking about developing an ISO standard. So we said, well, we already have asset management standards, and theoretically, these standards associations are supposed to recognize other organization standards. I say theoretically because I don't think anybody ever does that. But so we took the idea to get involved in developing the ISO asset management standard. And through ASTM, we applied for the, sort of the ownership and management administration of that US technical advisory group. And we were successful, much to the chagrin of some other people later, we found out. But so we worked on the standards, many of the people in this room and many, many others from the US and of course around the world. And it really opened our eyes to many different venues of asset management. My operative expression was, I know everything. Oops, well, now I know more than I did before. Now I know everything, and I kept having my eyes open. So when we were kind of getting well into that process, we understood that US Technical Advisory Group wasn't the group to carry us forward and to promote these standards, because that was a standards development group, not well suited to a lot of marketing, although we have tried it from time to time. So I was the head of the US delegation and chair, and I am again now somehow. But we decided to start another organization. And it took us a couple of years to sort of figure out what that was going to look like and what we were going to call it. And the Asset Leadership Network emerged out of that. We looked at titles that had word management in it, but already in 2013, anything with the words asset management in it was already taken in terms of a website or any of that kind of stuff. So we hit on asset leadership, which really contains exactly what we're about. One of the big issues overall in asset management is operational and mid-level people impacting the leaders and the C-suite people at organizations. So we're devoted to that concept of having an executive approach to asset management. Obviously, that all works together. Remember speaking at a number of maintenance conferences along the way, and those people knew a lot. And certainly our crumbling infrastructure and other maintenance problems aren't because we don't know how to do the maintenance. It's because the leaders don't have the will or the political capital to make it happen. So from an ALN perspective, we've been able to impact public policy. We've been able to impact the thinking of major government entities and corporations, hand in hand with many other organizations. Coming here to the National Academies through the offices of Jack Dempsey and his connections here was a huge step up. And now this, I don't know, how many people have never been in this building before? Yeah, it's a cool building, huh? Yeah, so, take a walk around at lunchtime or at a break or something. If the doors are open, there's an amazing auditorium. It looks like a Scandinavian cocoon. It's quite the place. So we've moved forward, and every year we were having these events in person. And of course, we had a transition, which we were able to do quickly. Thanks to Nick Kanoki back there. Say hi, Nick. And of course, Mike Bordenaro, who didn't, and many, many others. I'm looking at you, Jennifer, but that have propelled us. Jack Kelly, Rich, there's lots of people here that have helped propel this forward. What's been surprising every year is we'd have a goal to sort of up our game every year at these annual events in the fall. And amazingly, we always were able to exceed our expectations. I can't really explain why, but I would venture that knowledge, experience, connections that will come out of this event today will hopefully exceed your expectations. So we can all move forward and advance, a structured approach to asset management in the United States. So I don't know if Mike brought his you only have 5 minutes left sign, but I'm going to keep talking till he holds it up. So. So we talked a little about what is asset leadership. I do have a couple notes. Oh, one important point is myself and some others here came out of a personal property and government property management background. We're at National Property Management Association, you might have heard of, which is sometimes looked down on by other areas of asset management. But we usually use the example that the US government has, the last numbers I saw, something like 10 or 12 billion or $1 trillion worth of real property and infrastructure, and about $15 trillion worth of personal property. When you think that the real property and infrastructure have useful lives of 30 years and beyond, and the personal property has a useful life of 3 years to 10 years, perhaps, you can see that there's lots and lots of money going into personal property management. But this presentation today, this event and other events, we do our best to always adopt approaches that are inclusive to all types of assets, whatever type you're working on. We've been focused up to this point largely on the US federal government, but we've been branching out with the emphasis on infrastructure, over the last couple of years, and it's finally happening. There's money available. which is going to fund a lot of asset management, I hope. So we are looking to continue to push the infrastructure part forward, but not at the expense of the other areas of asset management and other approaches to asset management other than ISO 55,000. So last thought is, I went back and reread a book that I read several years ago. And the title is something like, "It Always Starts with Why." And it's just kind of been my guiding thought for the last several months. Why are we doing it? I was working with a water utility, and they were talking about their assets. And they said, "Well, what's the most important asset?" And they were talking about pumps and lines and things. And I said, "Water, maybe, is your most important asset? I mean, like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this?" And I think, the executive approach really does start with why. There's, lots and lots of attention on what I would call asset lifecycle management, but our approach to asset value management, or that executive approach, I think is what's going to take this to the next level and have a big impact on these infrastructure funds that get spent and other actions by the government and organizations. That's the thought I dropped. I'm sorry. We're going to start to work much more on state and municipal in the coming months and years. So if anybody's interested in that, well, Mike has set up the idea of sector asset leadership board. So we'll be setting one up for state and municipal. So we've got some people interested in that already. So it's just a lovely approach here. Love being at the National Academies. Thanks for being here. And it's a participatory event, of course. So enjoy yourself, and we'll have a great day. Thanks.